After 5 years of being overlooked, I discovered the incredible power of a mountain retreat. Sarah sat hunched over her cluttered desk in the dim office, scanning the law briefs with tired eyes. 5 years as a legal assistant, yet her contributions had become mere shadows in the firm. Each innovative idea that slipped from her lips felt like whispers lost amidst the roar of indifference. Discouragement gnawed at her. She fought to hide it from her family, who depended on her unwavering support. They needed her steady income, but no one saw the sacrifice she made. The economic strife of Maplewood clung to her like a second skin, suffocating her dreams while magnifying her fears. Guilt settled like lead in her chest as the clock ticked past 10. Her family was at home, likely wondering why she wasn't there. Alone, she was haunted by the haunting reality that her voice faded into the background while the bosses took credit for her ideas. Would they ever notice? Would they ever truly see her? Inside, she wrestled with her insignificance, trying to quell the mounting frustration. What would it take for her to finally matter? The tension coiled tighter when she glimpsed an envelope tucked between the files, an unexpected, unaddressed letter. Curiosity first mingled with apprehension, and the events of her life seemed to swirl around her, suffocating with force. She opened it to reveal a familiar, elegant script that sent a shiver down her spine. It was from her late grandfather. Her breath hitched as she read that he had left her a secluded mountain retreat in Colorado. She could hear the rumbles in her heart, a push and pull of yearning for escape and the crushing weight of responsibility. How could she leave her family during their time of need? But also, how could she ignore a legacy, a fragment of someone she adored yet never understood? She felt like she was at a crossroads between duty and desire, danger and freedom. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In that moment, the shadows of her office felt heavier than before. It wasn't just a retreat, it was a chance for clarity, for solace amidst chaos. But as her mind raced, self-doubt clawed at her. Would her family understand her need for escape? Would they even forgive her for abandoning them if only briefly? Tension mounted, her fingers trembling against the paper. What if she returned, snug in her old life, and became that ghost again, drifting unseen through the corridors of regret? The stakes surged with every tick of the clock, her breathing becoming irregular as a knot formed deep within her. How could a letter shape her destiny, reignite a spark that had long since flickered? She felt the cold specter of doubt hover over her as her heart raced. The thought of her boss, with his cutting remarks, waiting with judgment, breached her mind like an undertow dragging her under. As she stood now at the edge of a choice, not just about a retreat, but about finding her voice, her heart hammered against her ribcage. She took a shaky breath, steeling herself against the looming confrontation with her reality. And just as she gathered courage to rise, the office door swung open. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor, a harbinger of the ultimatum looming as a shroud of dread enveloped her, blocking her path forward. The moment was teetering on the brink, and she could feel the storm approaching, ready to unleash, and she had no idea if it would grant her wings or crush her spirit into the cold ground. The door swung open, and Gary, her boss, stepped through with an air of authority that chilled the office atmosphere. He surveyed the cluttered space while adjusting his tie, his sharp gaze landing on Sarah. Her heart sank, and nervousness prickled her skin. This was not merely a chance encounter, it felt like a reckoning. "Sarah," he began, a clipped tone cutting through the silence, "do you have that report ready? We need it tomorrow." She nodded, her throat dry, and began mechanically recounting the progress she had made. But words stuck in her throat, the paper in front of her a mere reflection of her doubts. She could sense his dismissive attitude, each reminder of her position broke her spirit a little further. As she detailed the report's findings, her voice felt thin, a whisper struggling for acknowledgement in an echo chamber of indifference. Gary cut her off before she could complete her explanation, a wave of his hand suffocating her thoughts. "We don't have time for details, just focus on the essentials." His expression was impatient, as if she was a mere cog within a machine. In that moment, anger ignited within her a fire she had suppressed for years. It fueled her, igniting the flicker of resolve she had discovered in her grandfather's letter. Maybe the mountain retreat wasn't just an escape, it could be a transformative experience, a catalyst for change. If she could harness that place of clarity and strength, perhaps she could finally command the presence she so desperately sought in her life. Returning to work the next day, Sarah was determined to shift her perspective. Instead of allowing Gary's dismissive remarks to rattle her, she began to take notes during meetings, weaving her observations into thoughtful suggestions that would elevate the firm's projects. It was subtle at first, a shifting of the tides within her. She chose to see her ideas as valuable rather than as overlooked appendages. Weeks passed with a growing sense of empowerment alongside a simmering anxiety about her trip. The retreat loomed on the horizon, a beacon of hope and transformation. Still, doubts crept in at the edges. Would it really change her? Could she confront the forces that had kept her trapped in silence? Each day felt heavier as she debated whether the retreat would be a step towards her liberation or simply another detour from her obligations. One evening, as the sun dipped below Maplewood's skyline, Sarah faced herself in the mirror. She examined the changes she could feel within the slow expansion of her confidence, the burgeoning sense that she deserved more than the little corner of the office that confined her. Yet, the lingering fear of what lay ahead came crashing like a wave against these new shores of determination. Sitting at her desk, Sarah drew deep breaths, channeling the stillness she hoped to find at the retreat. It wasn't merely about enjoying nature or nostalgia. This was an opportunity to ignite a spark within her that had lain dormant. She considered her family's potential reactions to her departure. Would they understand this quest for her own voice? Her heart raced with renewed resolve as she started to pack for the journey, anticipation mingling with uncertainty. Amidst the chaos of her thoughts, one question remained: would she return as someone who truly recognized her worth, or would she continue to linger in the background? That night, nestled in the peace of her home, enclosed by loved ones, a wave of sadness swept over her. The decision loomed like a storm cloud. Would she remain tethered to the fears and disappointments that weighed her down, or would she have the courage to forge a new path? As she closed her eyes and drifted into an uneasy sleep, the vision of the mountains beckoned to her, a siren call to the depths of her longing for purpose. The journey ahead was promising yet terrifying, an internal battle awaited her. The moment came when she could fully grasp her worth, but first, she would need to face the storm headed in her direction, a confrontation with the past and a step toward embracing her true self. And so, she steeled herself, knowing that soon enough, she would have to choose between hiding in the shadows or stepping into the light, starting with a journey that would lead her into the mountains. But what would she discover about herself once she took that plunge? As dawn broke, the first light spilling through the window, Sarah awoke with an unfamiliar sense of anticipation mixed with unease. Her reflection in the mirror spoke of fatigue, but beneath it lay a pulse of determination ready to emerge. Today was the day she would step into the mountains, each moment filled with the promise of transformation. Packing her car with the essentials: clothes, hiking boots, and a few notes from the office, she felt each item was a symbol of her resolve to become someone she was proud of. Yet, silence consumed her thoughts. Would this retreat empower her to break free from the confines of her job and the weight of expectations, or would it plunge her deeper into uncertainty? Breathing in deeply, she deflected self-doubt, focusing on the shimmering promise of change that awaited her. The journey unfolded in a whirl of trees and winding roads, the landscape shifting as she climbed higher. Nature was welcome solace from the dry air of the office. As she drove, her mind churned with expectations of revelations and breakthroughs, yet lurking behind those daydreams were haunting memories of Gary's dismissive tone, echoing like a mocking refrain in her ears. She had encountered that kind of dismissal before, but it was time to confront it. Upon reaching the retreat, nestled between towering pines, Sarah was met with an overwhelming sense of peace. The crisp mountain air filled her lungs, invigorating her spirit. She set down her bags and took a moment to absorb the beauty surrounding her, the serenity wrapping around her like a warm blanket. Yet, just as quickly, a familiar apprehension washed over her. Would this tranquility translate into inner strength or serve merely as a brief distraction from her underlying battles? As she settled into the first group session, a circle of unfamiliar faces greeted her. Each person shared their stories, their reasons for seeking solace in these mountains, a shared human experience that echoed her own yearning for change. Listening closely, Sarah felt the collective weight of unfulfilled potential vibrate in the air. It was a stark reminder of how long she had lived under the shadow of other people's expectations. That evening, nestled around a crackling fire, she joined in sharing her fear and experience, her voice trembling with vulnerability. The words spilled out like the mountain streams that surrounded them, raw and unfiltered. It was in that moment, as she opened up about Gary's contempt, that the dam within her began to break. The more she voiced her frustrations, the lighter she felt, as if each syllable helped to shed years of hushed agony. But her breathing quickened. She had revealed her insecurities. What would the group think? Then, to her surprise, a wave of empathy surged back. The others offered encouragement, their wisdom intertwining with hers, their struggles resonating deeply. Each voice that responded offered reflection and insight, and for the first time, she didn't feel marginal. Instead, she felt seen. It dawned on her, no longer did she have to acquiesce to the personalities that belittled her. Gradually, as dusk settled into night, she understood that this space held the potential to help her emerge renewed. This retreat wasn't just about escaping, it was about risking vulnerability for authentic growth. But just as clarity began to dawn, a chilling thought crept back into her mind: if she could expose her true self here, would she have the same courage when she returned to the fray of the office? The question lingered ominously. How could she carry this reclaimed power back into her daily life, particularly when faced with antagonism? Confrontation was already brewing, and she couldn't ignore it. The moment had arrived when she must decide: would she integrate her newfound strength or revert to the shadows? The weight of that choice loomed large. But she knew one thing: the mountains would reveal far more than just their breathtaking vistas. They would challenge her to stand fearlessly at the threshold of her own life. Her heart raced again. As realization dawned, this was only the beginning. In the depths of that night, in the embrace of the mountains, she steeled herself for whatever revelations awaited her. The journey had shifted from mere escape to essential confrontation, and now Sarah had to prepare herself for the inevitable reckoning with her past. Would she embrace the strength necessary to redefine her identity? There was no turning back. Tomorrow would unveil truths she had only begun to uncover. What would she discover about her own power when faced with the challenge of alignment and authenticity? The next morning, a crisp dawn enveloped the mountains in a golden hue, coaxing Sarah from a restless sleep. The serene clarity of the air mirrored the turmoil brewing within her. Deep down, she felt a sharp need for confrontation, not just with her external world, but with herself. Each breath filled her with the energy needed for the day ahead, for today was not merely about exploration, it was a pivotal moment in her transformation. After breakfast, the group gathered for a hiking session. The path ahead twisted like the uncertainties in her mind. As they began to climb, the camaraderie among the group invigorated her. Their laughter pierced through her anxiety and filled her with renewed hope. Yet, an undercurrent of tension lingered. How could she articulate her newfound strength to those who had undermined her for so long? The hike progressed, and Sarah found herself lagging behind, caught in her thoughts. The others pressed forward, their voices fading into the distance like her confidence had in the office. Just as she considered giving in to that familiar feeling of inadequacy, her gaze landed on a large, imposing rock beside the trail. It stood firm and resolute against the elements, a symbol of perseverance amid adversity. This moment forged a connection within her. She halted, feeling an impulse to connect with the rock. Reaching out, she traced the rugged surface, each groove telling a story of resilience. The realization struck like lightning: if this rock could endure life's relentless challenges, so could she. Sarah straightened her back, acknowledging that the courage she sought resided not only in this moment but within her very essence. She was tired of being overlooked and pushed aside. Summoning her resolve, she veered from the trail and clambered atop the stone. Her heart raced, the view now expansive as she surveyed the world around her. The feeling was exhilarating, like standing at a precipice ready to leap. She shouted shouts of frustration, fear, and more importantly, liberation. The sound echoed back from the mountains, a powerful reminder that her voice mattered. This catharsis unleashed something within her, opening doors to her suppressed ambitions and desires. As the group finally reconvened around her, they looked on in surprise. Their expressions shifted from bewilderment to understanding as she recounted her experience, her words flowing more freely than ever. They encouraged her, building her momentum. Suddenly, Sarah was not just a participant in this retreat but a catalyst for change, a position she had never imagined for herself. Returning to the path, she felt lighter, as if shedding layers of doubt. Yet, home was still looming in her mind, and as the hike concluded, the inner battle resumed its grip. Would this bravery extend to the office when the true test awaited her? Could she confront Gary unwaveringly, or would the familiar patterns resurface? Rather than retreat into fear, Sarah realized she must forge a plan. It wasn't enough to feel empowered, she needed actionable steps to consolidate her experience. She rested that night, writing down her thoughts under the stars, weaving plans and affirmations together like an intricate tapestry of her future. Breathing deeply, she could sense that the next day's exercise would be critical group work designed to delve deeper into personal challenges. The prompt was clear: confront the inspirational figures in their lives. For Sarah, that meant finally voicing to Gary the realities of her worth. As she put down the pen, a storm of questions toiled within her. Would she be able to summon the strength to articulate her feelings? Would she truly stand her ground, or would fear steal the power she had just embraced? Tomorrow would answer these questions. Tomorrow, she would meet the very test that was crucial for her development. Each moment brought her closer to defining her identity, but the stakes were growing higher. The fleeting thrill of strength must now transform into enduring courage. Could she hold on to this momentum when faced with the challenges awaiting her? The morning sun revealed a vibrant sky as Sarah sprinted through her mental checklist, her heart pounding in rhythm with the anticipation that filled her. Today was the day she would confront Gary. The weight of her decision hung suspended, amplifying the charge of uncertainty that buzzed through her veins. She was no longer the woman defined by self-doubt but a beacon of burgeoning potential. The mountains had ignited something within her. The group gathered in a circle, the atmosphere charged with excitement and vulnerability. Each participant shared their stories, a testament to their growth, but Sarah remained focused. She rehearsed her words silently, feeling the sharp edges of fear swirl within her despite the empowering backdrop. As people recounted tales of overcoming obstacles, she discerned a common thread: courage was never the absence of fear, but the decision to forge ahead despite it. When it was her turn, Sarah felt a sudden rush of heat wash over her. The spotlight fell on her, and for a moment, it paralyzed her. The doubts whispered again, entangled with memories of her office struggles, her voice overshadowed, her ideas dismissed. But she inhaled deeply, grounding herself, envisioning that rock she had encountered on the hike. "I've spent years feeling invisible," she began, her voice wavering but steadying with every word. "In my workplace, I often felt my contributions didn't matter, like I wasn't worthy of a voice." The truth poured out, each sentence stripping away layers of pretense. She recounted moments of dismissal, of being cut off mid-sentence, of watching peers parade their opinions as if hers carried no weight. As she spoke, the words transformed into a rallying cry, resonating within her and those around her. Fear shifted from a paralyzing force to a source of energy. They were not just her struggles anymore, they connected her to the group, intertwining their journeys with shared breaths of understanding. Sarah's narrative was a tapestry of resilience that wove her present into a future she desperately wanted. When she finally named Gary, her heart thundered. "I am committed to showing my worth, and I refuse to be overlooked any longer." The silence after her declaration felt monumental, a shift palpable amongst her peers. Their eyes glistened with respect, their nods affirming her resolve. But the true challenge lingered just beyond the circle. Back at the office, where Gary awaited her, she would have to exhibit this newfound clarity. The thought struck her hard: the confrontation she had envisioned was still waiting. Gary's office felt like a storm waiting to unleash. Even with this surge of strength, the lingering questions gnawed at her resolve. Could she transform words into action? After the session, Sarah retreated to a quiet spot overlooking the mountains. She watched the endless stretch of rugged beauty, contemplating the contrast between the tranquility surrounding her and the tumult that awaited. No longer was she merely surviving in her work environment, she needed to thrive. She envisioned the exchange with Gary clearly, step by step. She would focus on facts, her contributions, and proposals deserving recognition. She must articulate how her worth impacted the collective environment, framing the conversation toward mutual benefit. The battleground was set, not merely for her vindication but for forging a new path ahead. But urgency pulsed within her, reminding her that courage carries a price. The moments before she confronted Gary would define her journey, whether she would cower back into silence or rise to the challenge of asserting her value. Armed with a renewed purpose, Sarah stood and headed back to her group. The exhilaration left over from sharing her truth lingered in her mind. She wouldn't allow the weight of doubt to overshadow her progress any longer. As each stride took her closer to the office, a fresh determination crystallized. Yet, a solitary thought shadowed her excitement: what if Gary dismissed her? What if facing him pushed her back into the complacency she had fought so hard to escape? The encounter was imminent, and she could almost feel the electric uncertainty tightening around her. Tomorrow, she would step into that office and face the fears she had long kept at bay. Tomorrow would bring the reckoning long overdue, a decisive moment that would carve out her future. But would she embrace the challenge or retreat into the shadows once more? As the first rays of sunlight seeped through her bedroom window, Sarah stirred awake with the remnants of last night's reflections swirling in her mind. Today was the culmination of her internal struggle, a moment poised to shift the trajectory of her professional life. The scent of coffee brewed in the kitchen a familiar comfort, but today it felt different. It held a promise, perhaps the essence of affirmation she craved. She dressed carefully, picking an outfit that mirrored her intention: sharp, professional, yet approachable. Each button she fastened symbolized a layer of her newfound confidence. Staring at her reflection, Sarah silently rehearsed her articulation of worth, the transformation from the woman who had once answered back with silence into one ready to speak up and be heard. Arriving at the office felt like stepping onto foreign terrain, yet she sensed an invigorating energy coursing through her as the elevator doors glided open. The fluorescent lights flickered mildly, illuminating her path, or perhaps spotlighting her resolve. The adrenaline kicked in, with every step toward Gary's office, her determination crystallized. This wasn't just about her, it was about claiming her invaluable contributions and asserting her right to be heard among peers. When she reached the door to Gary's office, it loomed large in her mind, a barrier not merely of wood and glass but of years of frustration. Her instinct whispered doubt, but she countered it with breaths that anchored her in reality and purpose. Squaring her shoulders, she pushed the door open. Gary, immersed in his emails, barely glanced up as she entered. The space felt stifling, the air thick with anticipation. With resolve igniting inside her, Sarah cleared her throat to draw his attention. "Gary," she began, grappling to maintain her equilibrium, "I'd like to discuss my contributions to the team and how we can leverage them for better outcomes." His eyes flickered up, momentarily startled. However, there was a flicker of dismissal in his gaze, a familiar nuance that sent a wave of tension coursing through her. "Can this wait?" he replied curtly, glancing toward his screen. The thud in her chest reverberated. Staying silent was the softer option, the old habit that had woven itself into her very being. Yet, she felt a flicker of resistance rise within her. "No, it can't," she asserted, her voice firmer than she anticipated. "I believe I have valuable insights that can enhance our projects and team dynamics." The moment hung suspended. The challenge now was to maintain her composure and articulate her worth without succumbing to the familiar tides of insecurity that threatened to engulf her. She continued, armed with facts and specific examples of her past contributions, framing her words within the context of team growth. As she spoke, the rush of emotion became a focused energy, her initial fear yielding to clarity. She could see Gary's posture shift ever so slightly, he leaned back, subtle yet significant. The dismissal she had feared was being replaced by something else entirely. She pressed on, feeling emboldened. "You might not have noticed," she said, hesitating just for an instant to gather her thoughts, "but I led the last project that increased client satisfaction ratings by 20%. My ideas were dismissed in meetings, but they have potential and deserve consideration." The room pulsed with her conviction, and she lingered on his steel blue eyes, watching the flicker of acknowledgement change from a mere flicker to a genuine curiosity. It caught her off guard, yet the realization spurred her forward. As her words resonated in the space between them, she began to visualize not just a confrontation, but a collaboration. Perhaps Jamie's journey did not end here, perhaps it was merely the beginning of value being recognized. Her worth was not just for her but for the greater good of her team. But just as he opened his mouth, prepared to respond, a sharp knock on the door interrupted them, creating a fissure in the tension that had built. Sarah's heart raced. What if this distraction forced her concessions? Did she have the strength to persist through unexpected interruptions? The answer lay just beyond this moment, yet her hand trembled on the precipice of her truth, ready to embrace whatever revelation emerged. She realized, perhaps for the first time, that her story was still being written, one courageous word at a time. What would happen next could redefine not just her connection with Gary, but the entire landscape of her professional journey. The air thickened with anticipation, and just as the door opened, she braced for a response, one that would determine whether her path led to recognition or doubt yet again. Would she withstand the tempest that was about to strengthen her resolve? The door creaked open, and Sarah barely had time to collect herself before Sarah Walker, the office manager, peered inside. The interruption was infuriating. She felt like an actor waiting for the cue that would shift the scene into a compelling narrative. But now, all she could do was watch as Sarah's entrance painted over the nuances of the moment she'd fought so hard to create. "Sorry to interrupt, but we need the marketing plan on the client's desk by noon," Sarah Walker announced, her voice cutting through the charged silence. It was a reminder of the external demands competing for attention, yet all Sarah could think about was the precarious balance she'd been navigating. Gary glanced at Sarah Walker, and in that fleeting moment, the weight of her request slipped further from his mind. His focus shifted, the conversation thread unraveling as he waved dismissively. "I'll have it ready," he replied, though his eyes remained distant. The air felt dense, charged with possibilities that hung in the balance like fragile glass. Sarah's voice tightened momentarily in her throat. Had she lost him? Would her carefully constructed sentence evaporate like morning mist? "Wait," she blurted out, her voice emerging strong, though laced with urgency. "Gary, it's important. I need clarity on where my contributions fit into the overall strategy." His eyebrows raised slightly, and for a fleeting second, there was a hint of surprise mingling with annoyance. "We can talk later," he said, returning his gaze to the screen, but Sarah followed him with resolve, unwilling to let her opportunity dissolve away. "No, I need to talk now," she insisted, her tone catching the attention of both Sarah Walker and Gary. A reassuring fire ignited in her chest. This was her moment. "If I don't speak up now, I'll lose the chance to make my insights heard yet again." The tension in the room shifted again, suspended in disbelief as both individuals turned to face her fully. There was no turning back now. "I've been silent too long while contributing valuable insights that have impacted our projects positively," she continued, grounding herself in the facts she had armed herself with. "We increased client satisfaction ratings by 20% because of efforts I led, yet I have felt overlooked in our discussions. That's not just frustrating, it's a missed opportunity for our team." The room felt charged, each word crystallizing her internal resolve. She watched Gary's body language. His posture had subtly changed, signaling that her assertiveness was having an effect. There was no trace of dismissal now, only curiosity emanated from his gaze. Yes, I remember those numbers," he finally admitted, his voice softer now, laced with a hint of reluctant respect. "But..." Sarah held her breath, poised to catch whatever hesitation he was about to release. This was the moment she had trained herself for, not just to advocate for her perspective, but to carve a path forward in her career, one fraught with self-doubt that she was only now learning to navigate. But, Gary continued, those numbers were there, but we need you to present fresh ideas, new approaches. All her instincts told her to leap forward, but the hesitation in his words suggested more than just skepticism. What are the barriers? She questioned, searching his eyes for clearer direction. What might it take for me to be recognized more fully in our strategy sessions? Gary seemed to ponder the question, his lips pressing together as though weighing something heavy. She realized now that her journey was intertwined with his. What did he fear about her stepping up? Was he repelled by the possibility of a challenge? Before he could answer, Sarah Walker shifted slightly, her notebook poised, as if she, too, wished to weigh in. Tension vibrated in the air, and visions of every project that had foundered without her participation flooded Sarah's mind. Every collaboration stifled a vivid reminder of her silent acceptance. Let us take a moment to think this through together, Sarah Walker proposed, a hint of strategy lighting her features. The suggestion caught Sarah off guard. It was an invitation to a dialogue. Could this flattening of the hierarchy signal an opportunity for growth, not just for her, but among them all? The next breath she took might change everything, but she had to believe that even in vulnerability, strength could emerge. We'll change the way we collaborate, Sarah said firmly, excitement tinging her voice. I'm ready now to redefine our engagement, and I'd like your support in taking this forward. The room bounded with unspoken tension, yet Sarah stood strong, knowing the outcome might pivot not just her career but redefine the perceptions they held together. As they settled back into reflection, her heart began to race with the possibilities unfurling before her. She could feel the change on the horizon. Yet, the question loomed heavy, could the office environment really shift to accommodate the growth she envisioned? Just as she anticipated a response, doubt flickered like a mirage in the distance. Would others embrace her transformation, or would there still be walls barricading her from the recognition she deserved? The path ahead glimmered with uncertainty, but Sarah felt unwavering a mountain to climb, each step closer to conquering the peaks of her potential. The room quivered with a silence that felt paradoxically heavy and liberating. Sarah was acutely aware of the weight of her words hanging in the air, the tension coursing through her like an electric current. She had steered the conversation to uncharted waters, and now there was no turning back. As she glanced at Gary, she recognized the subtle shift in his demeanor. The challenge she deposed lingered in his mind like an unresolved symphony. His brow wrinkled slightly, and for those fleeting moments, she could see the wheels of thought turning in his head. Maybe, just maybe, wouldn't dismiss her again. What do you propose, Sarah? He finally asked, his voice quiet but resonant. The pause in his tone hinted at curiosity, a small but definitive crack in the armor of dismissiveness that had encased their interactions for so long. This was the fork in the road she had long awaited, a chance not just to showcase her ideas but to redefine her place. The air crackled with anticipation. I'd like to lead a brainstorming session to generate fresh ideas, she proposed, the words tumbling naturally from her mouth, precisely as she had envisioned. We have valuable data from past projects, and we can leverage that to innovate our approach. I want to guide us in exploring new strategies that align with our clients' evolving needs. His gaze softened, yielding momentarily to the prospect of collaboration. It was evident he was weighing the merit of Sarah's newfound confidence against his apprehensions. Could he truly step aside to allow her to take charge? Brainstorming sessions have their challenges, he countered slowly, his analytical mind working through past failures. They can become muddled, and it's crucial that we stay focused. Are you prepared to facilitate that? A rush of adrenaline surged through Sarah, replacing her uncertainty with a fierce determination. Absolutely. I've researched effective strategies for leading discussions and cultivating an inclusive environment. We can implement structure while still encouraging creativity. I'm ready to take this step. Gary's pragmatic demeanor shifted, nodding as he began to contemplate the implications of her plan. All right, let us explore it further. But you'll need to convince the others. Her heart raced, this was it. She had taken the first leap into a territory that felt both thrilling and daunting. I'll assemble a proposal. I want to show them how structured brainstorming can enhance our output. We can collaboratively build off each other's strengths, and I'll be there to ensure everyone's voice is heard." As she scanned the room, she sensed a flicker of encouragement from Sarah Walker, who had remained an observer with an approving nod. Her presence felt like a quiet endorsement. "Remember," Gary cautioned, "not all battles need to be won at once. You may face resistance, and if you're leading this effort, you need to prepare for skepticism." That shot of realism tempered her excitement, yet she was unfazed. "I'm not backing down," she declared, the conviction resounding in her voice. "This is my moment to redefine my role and contribute in a way that truly matters." Gary regarded her intently, and for the first time, she saw a hint of respect glimmer in his eyes. "Then, let's set a time for this proposal review. I'll do my best to allocate resources, but remember it's about proving the value of your approach." As they began to wrap up the conversation, Sarah felt a swell of accomplishment. The undercurrents of doubt that once plagued her began to recede as her perspective sharpened to embrace the challenge. She was no longer just an observer, she had taken a decisive step toward shaping her professional destiny. Later that evening, she sat at her kitchen table, papers strewn across the surface. As she began drafting her proposal, a shadow of doubt flickered through her mind. Could she shoulder the responsibility? Would her voice really resonate with her colleagues? Suddenly, a much-needed reminder sparked within her. Each obstacle she had encountered only served to fortify her resolve. The night wore on, filled with the rhythmic tapping of her keyboard and the soft hum of determination. Just as she finalized her outline, a pressing question dawned on her: did she have the skills to navigate particularly challenging personalities within her team? The realization settled heavily. She not only needed to convince Gary and Sarah Walker but also win over technicians and creative thinkers whose perspectives vastly differed from her own. With her heart pounding in exhilarated anticipation, she understood that the real challenge awaited her. The time had come to face the skeptics who might resist her vision for transformation. As she embraced the shadow stretching ahead, her mind whirred with questions about her capability to cultivate a shift within the team. Perhaps the biggest leap lay not in leading a brainstorming session but in learning to take ownership of a leadership role that had been yearning for her attention all along. Would she rise to the challenge, transforming the very fabric of her workplace dynamics? Determined, she pressed her fingers to the keyboard, ready to dive deeper. The following weeks became a whirlwind of activity for Sarah. The excitement of her newfound role sent her spinning into a realm of fervor as she began drafting her proposal. Every element of her approach demanded meticulous attention. She needed to articulate not just her ideas but the frameworks that would support them. Her kitchen table bore witness to brainstorming sessions of its own. Sticky notes littered the surface in a colorful, chaotic display of concepts. Yet with every vision she penned down, an underlying sense of inadequacy crept in, taunting her with thoughts of failure. Was she truly prepared to lead those who had doubted her for so long? Were her skills valid in the grand mosaic of intricate personalities she had to navigate? As she crafted her proposal, she found herself visualizing each potential participant: the deeply analytical minds of the technicians, the abstract thinkers among her creative peers. Their past dismissals stung like a metaphorical sting of bees, and she wrestled with the idea of how to simultaneously foster open dialogue while keeping her own insecurities at bay. Finally, the day arrived for her to present the outline to Gary, and the pressure weighed heavily on Sarah's shoulders. The office felt more daunting than usual. Fluorescent lights buzzed above her like circling vultures, and colleagues' murmurs seemed to blend with an internal drumroll hastening her heartbeat. In the conference room, she poised herself confidently, fingers wrapped tightly around her notes. Gary and a handful of team leaders assembled, their eyes set upon her, but one voice stood out: the fibrous, confident tones of Greg, the technician whose opinion carried weight among the crew. "Well, Sarah," he began, tilting his head ever so slightly, "what makes you think your structured approach can actually foster creative thinking? We've seen these attempts crumble before." Beneath the table, her knees quivered like leaves in a gust of wind. Response flared in her gut: she couldn't let the past determine the outcome of her future. This was the moment she had envisioned for weeks, the first confrontation that could shift the course of her professional journey. "What makes me think?" she echoed, her voice steady yet resolute. "Because I believe we can redefine how we collaborate. This approach isn't about stifling creative input. It's about framing our thoughts constructively to harness the collective intelligence of our diverse talents. As she spoke, she infused her words with the passion that had sparked her initial desire for this change. The awareness of her audience surged, and she could discern the skeptical furrows of Greg's brow soften ever so slightly. By acknowledging each individual strength, we can truly amplify our innovation capacity. She presented her ideas with fervor and clarity, outlining the workshop's structure, how time would be allocated for freeform writing, and facilitated discussions encouraging everyone's contribution. Deep down, she wrestled with the internal critic reminding her of possible failure, a cacophony silenced by the electricity that surged through her as she spoke. The discussion meandered under Gary's guiding hand, each remark from her colleagues drawing her deeper into the fabric of their critique. With every question posed, she felt layers of her insecurity peeling away like old paint, revealing a hidden vibrancy she hadn't fully embraced before. Their mixed responses, however, were unexpected. Not all were convinced. Some offered cynicism, voicing concerns over time constraints and potential disengagement, while others appeared intrigued by her proposal, nodding thoughtfully. Before concluding, she anticipated Greg's re-emergent voice, ready with a counterpoint that could dismantle her momentum. And if this fails, what is the next step, Sarah? We can't afford another deflation of morale. That stark reality burrowed into her mind. It was crucial to address the vulnerability of failure. If we fail, she admitted with conviction, we learn. We adapt. It's about creating a culture where we feel safe enough to take risks. True innovation seldom comes without a touch of chaos. A silence settled as realization gripped the room. They were all on the precipice of a monumental choice. As their deliberation continued, Sarah's heart surged with a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. It was becoming clear that her power wouldn't lie solely within her proposal's success or failure. It lay in igniting a movement among her colleagues, a shift toward vulnerability and collective growth. Her eyes landed on Gary, and for a fleeting moment, she saw a flicker of support in his expression. Each challenge she faced unveiled layers of her potential, forcing her to not only contend with opposition but champion an inclusive vision of creativity. As the meeting concluded, a new resolve seeped into her bones. The true power of this endeavor rested not within convincing others but within being unflinchingly authentic regarding her own aspirations and fears. Just as she stepped out of the conference room, a thought gripped her, a gnawing realization. How would she navigate the lingering shadows of doubt that her own colleagues harbored? More importantly, could she sustain the momentum of her resolve when she might face an intense backlash in the actual brainstorming session? There lay her next pang of uncertainty, confronting the deeply rooted skepticism of those she sought to inspire. Would she rise to unify them, or would the seeds of doubt choke the very vision she aimed to cultivate? The days following the proposal felt like a seismic shift had occurred within Sarah, but shadows of uncertainty still dwelled around her. She was no longer the overlooked assistant, now she held the mantle of a leader, someone tasked with guiding her colleagues toward collaboration and innovation. Yet she understood that her true victory rested not merely in convincing them of her ideas, but in truly inspiring and empowering them to embrace their full potential as a team. The scheduled brainstorming session loomed like a thunderstorm on the horizon. Sarah spent the night before ensuring every detail was set, working her way through her notes with meticulous precision. She developed an engaging agenda that encouraged inclusivity, fostering a safe space for input. By ensuring each voice could be heard regardless of hierarchy, she sought to catalyze the innovation she envisioned. Arriving at the conference room, the atmosphere felt electric. Colleagues filed in, some hesitant, others carrying visible skepticism, while a few displayed the supportive nods that provided Sarah with a flicker of hope. As she set up the materials, her heart raced. This was the moment when her vision would unfold. "Welcome, everyone," she began, her voice steady despite the weight of her nerves. "Today, we're here to challenge our usual processes and embrace the creative spark that lies within each of us. Let us transform potential into action." The initial response was mixed, murmurs of doubt trickled through the participants. Yet she pressed on, channeling the empowered essence she had gained over the past weeks in the mountains. Engaging her colleagues with questions ignited conversations that flowed like streams in spring thaw. She encouraged every participant to voice their perspectives, and slowly but surely, more ideas began to surface. Midway through the session, a breakthrough occurred when Greg, who had initially challenged her, offered a compelling input inspired by the very essence of Sarah's structured framework. "What if we combine our individual specialties into collaborative subgroups?" he suggested. "We could streamline our brainstorming with more focused discussions, then come back together to share our findings." Sarah's heart soared. This was exactly what she had hoped for. The dynamic sense of teamwork blossomed before her as other contributors joined in, building upon Greg's suggestion. Ideas began to circulate, feedback flowed freely, and even those initially resistant found themselves embracing the unfolding synergy. As the session drew near to a close, the room buzzed, filled with energy that had been dormant for too long. Sarah could sense that a transformation was occurring. Their collaboration was producing innovative concepts that previously might have succumbed to the shadows of silence. Yet, a lingering question remained: would the influx of new ideas be enough to change perceptions beyond this moment? As thoughts unfolded, Sarah took a breath before sharing one more thought. Our creativity thrives not just in this session but in how we choose to approach our daily work moving forward. If we harness this energy regularly, we'll elevate not only our projects but our collective spirit. At the end of the brainstorming session, the expression on Gary's face reflected surprise and appreciation. "Sarah, thank you for this. Your approach has injected a new life into our processes. Let us ensure that we maintain this momentum going forward." The validation she felt was bittersweet but invigorating. The barriers she had faced were crumbling, revealing a path toward recognition and respect. For the first time, she felt seen not just for her contributions, but for the complexity of her journey. Returning home that evening, her heart felt buoyant and light, realities interspersed with dreams, as she pulled her family into an embrace that spoke of unspoken struggles and uncharted victories. She recounted the day's triumphs, feeling their support swell within her like the mighty mountains. This was the resurgence she had longed for, her voice finally reverberating through the corridors of her professional existence. Weeks turned into months, and the culture within the office began to shift. Conversations turned more collaborative, processes became more structured yet innovative, and Sarah blossomed into a recognized leader among her peers. Her confidence solidified, and with time, she accomplished what once seemed unattainable, transcending from a role defined by others' perceptions into one shaped by her own agency. This journey had taken her from obscurity to empowerment, revealing the depth of her capabilities. Sarah found fulfillment in her position, paving a route where her voice not only mattered but echoed through the halls with clarity and authority. She faced each day with solid confidence, her contributions acknowledged and valued, an established position reinforced by mutual respect. As she settled with her family at the end of a long day, she reflected upon her evolution. Every moment of doubt had propelled her forward, crafting a narrative where personal achievement was limitless. Sarah had conquered her insecurities and emerged stronger, a meaningful representation of resilience, one that proved that even the shadows of silence could be transformed into powerful echoes of innovation. Now, her legacy wasn't just in the work she accomplished but in her unwavering belief that everyone deserved to be truly seen. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that could inspire you as well. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Together we can ignite more transformations. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice is valuable. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the message of strength and overcoming.